to the most ill-conceived business podcast around, the Business is Bullshit podcast. I'm James Hornick. Joining me are two gentlemen that I love you guys. My best friends in the world.
Oh, man,
Jared Gibson, John Sarakis.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're welcome.
This is great, man. My face.
I just feel like I haven't seen you in forever. We haven't actually recorded a pod. It feels like a month. Jared's schedule's so crazy. We can't actually. Or was it John? I don't know. You guys are both all over the place.
I'm comfortable with it being Jared's.
Yeah. I'll take blame. I mean, I'm at my parents' house in Ohio right now, so I'm traveling a little bit.
All right, so what we want to talk about, we're gonna let Jared. We're gonna let John just do a little story time, which we might have to cut out of here if he tries to cancel us in a story. But what we are going to talk today, just to get this out front, so we'll kind of know what they're in for. I don't want to have a fake news discussion, but we are going to talk about how financial media is the absolute fucking worst. But before we get there, so that's a teaser. John, what do you got for us this week? All right. Well, I was right. John is trying to get his cancer. We're going to cut that. So if you're wondering why the story suddenly disappeared, we're going to get right into the show now.
Thanks, John.
Okay. All right. So this is not a fake news discussion. I want to point that out very clearly that this is not what we're leading into. I had this conversation with lots of people before. And when I say like how financial media is the worst, because it does run downhill. I think financial media is the absolute worst, followed by business media, and I'll say why. And everyone's like, all media is like that. Like, really not, because I think most media, there's an event that happens, and then they talk about it, and maybe you can argue it's not actually news, it's not actually relevant, it's not actually important, but there was something that typically happened. Whereas in financial media, absolutely nothing can happen, and they'll still make some story about it. And I'm going to give you guys a bunch of examples here. So we can make this kind of a quiz. I'm going to read off a few headlines. I'm going to mention, and these are all from the past month or so. I started taking these down. We recorded our last podcast and putting them in a file, and it's taken us that long to get to them. But I'll read the headline, give you a quick synopsis, and if you guys think you can tell me why this is a complete bullshit story, non-story, and if you can't do it, I'll give you the answer. Does that sound like a fun game?
My kind of quiz, as long as we get the prize.
It's going to be a hard fail for John and I, but I'm ready for it.
Let's do it.
All right. So headline 1, stagflation is poised for a comeback. This is from Bloomberg. And the synopsis of the article discusses a potential return of stagflation, which is a combination of stagnant growth and high inflation, meaning the economy's not getting bigger, but the inflation's going to happen. So it's a big economic issue if stagflation happens. Now, why is this headline and article complete bullshit?
Is there anything different than something doesn't this happen every single year? Is there any, I guess, variable that would change this?
You're close. You're on the right wavelength.
Has stagflation gone away?
Stagflation has been an ongoing, and I
feels like it's a buzzword. It's a scary buzzword. It's a
scary buzzword. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's a scary buzzword. They're basically saying something might happen, guys, and you should get scared about it. Now the problem is, there has been at least one major article writing about stagflation every single year since 1995, and that's only because I didn't ask it to go back further. So, 2024, we're headed for a stagflationary crisis unlike any other. Time magazine. 2003, stagflation fears are rising. Here's why one firm said it's unlikely outcome for the economy. Business Insider. 2002, why is the threat of stagflation rising? The Week. I'll skip back because I don't need to go through all these. 2016, rising inflation is slowing growth, sparks stagflation fears. That's again Bloomberg. 2015, stagflation concerns emerge as economy slows. That's CNBC. Every year, someone is writing a stagflation article, but it never actually happens.
This is like the book report that you did in 3rd grade, that you did again in 4th grade, and then the same book.
It's just
Old Yeller, baby.
Year, someone's going to create a stagflation article, and I don't think it's really happened since the 70s or something like that. It's just it's just one of these things that's not a real. And if it does happen, it's just like a recession. You don't know you're in a recession until you're out of it. It's just kind of a made up thing that But again, it's an example of nothing actually happened, but they're going to create news around something might happen. This time it's going to be different.
But that's what I'm wondering, how much of that is manipulated, right? How much of just because somebody needing to get a piece of content out because that's their job has negative consequence, whether intended or unintended. The power of what they have is, immeasurable in some cases.
Yeah, what bothers me about financial media too is that like and just going on a tangent already. There's typically these organizations, and I say this, I actually trade. I do trade financial derivatives. Actually, I'm pretty in tune to the markets. People who are on
stock
these
tips,
CNBC and Bloomberg, and all these, they're not actually allowed to trade. So, like, if you've ever like made any trade, you actually know more tactically than anyone on these networks do. Like, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about because they don't have to
Wait
do
a
it
second.
yet.
You're saying Jim Cramer is full of shit? Is that what you're saying right now?
Jim Cramer hasn't done anything meaningful since how long's he been on that fucking network? I don't know. Like, yeah,
He's
yeah.
making
There's
a lot
people
of
that have
money.
like graded him, and it's pretty bad, man. I mean, didn't he go
Yeah.
on like John Stewart and cry because he stole he made his parents lose all their money or something?
Yeah, well, that's the ongoing meme on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's the ongoing meme on Twitter. Is anytime Cramer wants to buy something, you should sell it because like it's like below 50. Like, I don't know how you're a below 50% stock picker and not a major network, but yeah.
I mean, that's
Anyways.
pretty crazy. Like, that's got to be a lot of pressure, though, too. Like, I'm going to go back to gambling because it makes sense for me. Like, I can't imagine somebody that's getting paid a ton of money to to put out bets. Like, here's the safe bet of the week and continuously losing. Like, eventually you're just going to start fading that person. What was that movie with Matthew McConaughey based on the true story?
With Al Pacino? Yeah.
Two for the Money, I think is what it was.
Yeah. Gets his
Great
ass
movie.
kicked in a park, riding a bike.
Yeah. Yeah, he lived in Vegas and he was making picks and people would pay him a lot of money. And when he started getting a lot of them wrong, like, yeah, he got the shit kicked out of him in a park. Good movie.
Yeah.
Jim
Anyway,
Cramer.
stagflation, bullshit term, and bullshit topic. Like, when there's actually stagflation, let's talk about it then. Not like, oh, this year might be the year we finally get it. So there's one down.
There's a good chance that I will never talk about stagflation again for the rest of my life after this conversation. Continue.
All right, number 2. Bull crash drives biggest ever drop in allocation to U.S. equities from Yahoo Finance. Investor allocation to U.S. stocks experienced its largest record decline in March as concerns over stagflation and trade wars led to a significant shift towards cash holdings.
That's an awful headline just based on all the gook in the line.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's just a mouthful. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really ask you guys this one because it's just such gobbledygook to begin with. Like, I don't know where to start. First thing, bull crash is another made-up term, kind of like stagflation. It's just like nonsense.
Isn't a bull market and bear market like? I mean, those are like it's one or the other, right? It's not.
So what I think because there's been a bull market and then it crashed, which is kind of leading into why this is also kind of a flawed concept.
If it's already all the way up here and it crashes a little bit, does it really crash down to where it was?
Yeah. What's the definition of a crash?
You guys are getting it. So it talks about how there's more money getting put into cash holdings, but like it's the only percentage base. The article talks about how there's like people are now in 4% cash versus 3.5% cash. Whatever, who cares? All I know is the stock market for 2 straight years went up 25% 2 years in a row, which is like fucking unheard of. Like, we've been on a monster tear. And it finally topped, and people finally took profits off of like making all the money and putting money into cash. And they were trying to say, "Oh my God, this is time for a panic." I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. And the markets are also bigger, right? So 15, 20 years ago, when the SPX when like the total amount of equities in the U.S. was half of what it was. Of course, when people sold 1% of their portfolio back then versus 1% now, it's twice as big now. Like, of course, it's a bigger. Talking notional value, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
the equity market's bigger, so when people sell it, like that's more cash. I don't know.
I get what you're saying. The concept of what you're saying. Okay, so I guess this is something that I should ask at the end of all these questions.
Yeah.
After the train passes, wherever John is right now. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I do.
It's like
Jesus Christ, John. All right. Anyway, all of this is though like the role of these companies, these institutions, these media outlets is, I would argue that it's more to get people to engage with the content over getting all the facts right.
Correct. They're selling ad revenue.
Totally agree.
100%. So this is never
manipulation
is
what it is.
It's 100%. But it's always been like this. I don't think it's gotten any worse. Nothing's changed.
It may have gotten better. Actually,
there's just more sources of it now.
I think
social media.
I think I guess what I want to do is just that was probably the hardest one. The rest of these are going to be super easy. I believe you guys will get them. But it's just people need to think more critically because like the amount of times I'll have like someone send me some article that's like one of these clickbait nonsense articles. I'm like, come on, dude, like put your head like, you know. I believe that people can become smarter by thinking more critically about the bullshit's being peddled, and I think the financial media is the most blatant. Let me go on.
I'm guilty. Hold on a second. I'm guilty of this. So
Yeah.
I will see an article,
Yeah.
and again, it's usually sports related. Then I'll see just the headline, and I won't even read the article, and I'll copy paste it, and I'll send it out to like my dad, my brothers, my friends, right? And then I'll click on it, and I'll start reading it, and I realize that like that headline had nothing to do with what this article is about.
Dude, that's just lazy. That's a
It's very lazy. It's very lazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right.
All
Continue.
right, all right. Number 3, U.S. households are sitting on record amounts of stock. This could be bad news for the market. Business Insider. Long story short, Americans' household have allocated record high percentage of their financial assets into stocks. Blah blah blah.
I mean, what percentage of Americans are in the stock market?
Yeah, basically that. It's.
I think I remember seeing this in the notes though, so I'm gonna hold my tongue. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you just go back a couple years, there are all kinds of articles from the same. Is this? No, this is from Forbes. 2020. Most Americans don't have a real stake in the stock market, saying that only 55% of Americans have a stake, which they're saying is a low number. And then now, I don't know if it's like 2 percentage points higher. They're saying it's, well, the peak was 67% in 2002. So
67% in 2002. What is the number now?
Honestly, this article didn't even say. I think it's roughly around, it's a little bit higher than 57 when I looked at the entire thing. It's not a significant amount. Long story short, like, and then there was another one.
Does a 401k count? Does having a 401k count?
It's a good question. If you have no, because like that would be in a fund, wouldn't be like.
I feel like it's probably.
But aren't funds part of
higher.
stocks? Like, don't they take in that?
They're like ETFs. I think it's, well, it depends how you're defining. If you mean like actual company stock versus like an ETF, but I think the indication here is actual, like you got like your own private, like your investment account holdings. 2021, there was another article.
62%. I don't think so. I think that 401k's got to be included with that number.
I do too, because it's essentially that's what it's buying a piece of. So
yeah, I think it's got to be, because if I'm thinking 62%, you said in 2002.
67
so,
in 2002.
67%. Yeah. How many companies? Like, think of the workforce. There's the blue collar, the white collar, all the different workforce.
Gray collar.
How many of whatever. Okay. How many of them have 401k plans? Like, if you think about blue collar workers, like how many of those have the people working in restaurants have a 401k plan?
Theorizing here, the reason why I might have been higher in 2002 is that was the end of the dot-com boom. Like every sucker was buying any stocks.
That's a good call.
They lost their ass, and I'm not down stocks anymore. That'd be my theory. But
I still think that seems high. But
regardless, we're saying that like, oh, record amount of Americans own stock or something like that. And 2 years ago, we're saying not enough Americans hold stock. Like, which is
Jared, how much is in your 401k?
Not enough. I don't think I've
non-answer.
Honestly, I don't even have my 401k right now. I haven't been adding much to it since I started this company. We'll get there.
Dude, I'll tell you something. This is one of my dumbest blunders. I left a company, and there was all these like scams going on. And I remember I put money into, it was 401k or something where they had some kind of matching program. And this company called, and they were like super sketchy. And they were like, "Yes, we've taken over your fund." And they're like telling me, I was like, "Yeah, right. You're not going to scam me and all that." And they're like, "No, like it was serious." I guess it was the last point where they were taking over the fund, and if I didn't give them my information because they had mailed me things, that I was going to lose the money. And I didn't believe them. And I lost the money because it wasn't a scam. It turned out like they were actually trying to do the right thing, but I was not going to give some foreigner my information. So, yeah. Sucks. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a huge amount. It was like a few $1,000s, in my 20s. But I was like, dude, I definitely,
What are your thoughts on outsourcing now?
I still don't like it. Yeah.
You don't. He does it. He outsources. Fucking liar. All right, moving on. Number 4. Intel is the best chip stock this year in a surprising reversal from MarketWatch. Intel has emerged as the top-performing chip stock of 2025. Shares rising approximately 19% year-to-date, making a significant turnaround. Why is this the most absurd headline? You might have to know a little about the stock market, chip market, but if I'll give you a spoiler if you've heard of Nvidia. Why is it a bullshit story that Intel's the best stock of this year?
Oh, dude, yeah, because they're not.
Let me read the numbers here. This is called curve fitting your headlines and curve fitting your data for a headline. Intel is up. It is true. It's up 19% year. It actually looks up 21% year to date today. Nvidia is down 17%. Why is it still nonsense? Because Nvidia in the trailing 12 months is down 43%, whereas Nvidia was up 258%. They found the exact window where Intel wasn't a complete pile of shit and decided to write a story about it. Mm-hmm. But the last 10 years, Intel stock is up 0.6%, whereas Nvidia's up 32,053%.
Boom!
So, congratulations, MarketWatch, for picking out the exact 3-month period where Intel wasn't a complete pile of dung. No, I do not think you should be buying Intel.
That's the issue. That's the thing that I want to rant about.
Taking stock advice from me. But yeah, I mean, come on.
Do we need to put that disclaimer on here?
Yeah, do not take my advice on stock buying. But like, it's down 43% in the last year, whereas Nvidia's up 258%. You're trying to tell me, like, come on. It's kind of like if you ever see some fund and they'll brag about what their returns were, they always start like in 2010, like after the market collapse. Like they don't include their 2008, 2009 numbers. They, going back to 2010, we have this amazing performance. Yeah,
would you
out there before that?
Would you? I do the same thing. Wouldn't that make the most sense? Like, how do you paint the picture to make your?
It's still curve fitting data to like exclude the worst occurrences and only show the best ones. That's all I'm saying.
I'm trying to think of when my financial planner sat down and he showed me or whatever. You know what? I think what they showed was just a different type of a chart for just overall gains for like 30 years or something. And that way you can kind of get away with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Data analytics. It's quite the fascinating business, how to lie with numbers. Anyways. All right. This might be the easiest one. So I hope you guys can get this one.
Okay.
Number 5. NASDAQ confirms correction amid U.S. trade policy uncertainty. From Reuters. This was on March 6th. So NASDAQ is confirming correction in the market.
So this is something historically that happens that they're just saying like, yeah, that was a correction is what I'm hearing.
Correction.
Right? It's more basic than that.
Oh, wow.
So repeat that again.
So NASDAQ confirms correction amid U.S. trade policy uncertainty from Reuters. This was on March 6th. It's down 10.4% from its December 16th high. Maybe that's the key piece of information you needed. So
what was the December 16th high?
10.4% higher than whatever it was that day. They're confirming in a news article that NASDAQ stocks are down 10.4%.
That's it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why do you need the NASDAQ to do this? If you have a fucking screen, you can look at the stock market.
Yeah.
Who needs them to confirm this? You can just go and check out the NASDAQ performance. I can check out SPX and see, like, is it up or down today? Like, you don't need someone confirming this.
I feel like that was a trick question.
I do too.
It is, but
I think that's not fair. That wasn't.
It's like asking your clock for a time report.
No, it was exactly. This is exactly what it's like. All I'm saying is like it's such a like we don't need. It's such basic information, you know. It's like Jared. It's like you're watching a baseball game and then someone confirms what the score is while you're watching it. Like, do you need that? Is that pertinent information?
I'm at the game. I'm at the game, and I get that. But I do think about it. I'm like, wait a second. I'm actually here. That can't. Yeah. That's not true.
I can see what the score is. I'm watching it live. I know what the score is.
See the humans right there.
Anybody can access this information anytime they want to. They don't need some company putting out a report confirming it.
Does somebody get paid to write that article? That's the question. Like
probably AI written. Maybe someone used to get paid. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's shift to one business article because this is one we actually talked about, and you guys like this one. So, it's not exclusively financial news, but we can even get into this too. So, business news. Falling Starlink satellites worry scientists. 120 fell from space in January from Business Standard. So January 2025, 120 SpaceX Starlight satellites re-entered Earth's atmosphere.
So, a few things that jump out here. One, I think we would have heard through the media, through news, if anything was damaged. One, two, I always thought that they were either like they burnt out through the or going through the Earth's atmosphere,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
then
Correct.
last, I mean,
Yes
they
and
would
yes.
just burn out, right? What am I
Yeah.
missing? If they're falling from the sky, like if they're burning out, I mean, maybe they
Were
go over
they were
water.
they just like resigned, like they were just done with their tour or their orbit, and then you know what I mean? Like, was
Space
this planned?
trash.
The way this was written, falling Starlink satellites worry scientists. 120 fell from space in January. It makes it sound like they're just falling from the sky because they're shitty and made. And
Yeah,
it's
right into
dangerous and falling on people.
playgrounds and just like beaches. People are
what
playing.
it failed to mention was these are all planned. This was the end of their life cycle.
Okay,
Two,
there you go.
falling from that's how they come down. They fall from the sky. Three, they all burned up. That's also part of the plan. Four, larger things that don't burn up, they're planning to fall in the Pacific Ocean. Like the International Space Station is going to come down in a few years, and it's going to land in the like. Nothing is
Yeah.
unknown about this. There's no danger. It's not falling on anybody's head. Like there's nothing out of line with any of this. The only part of it that's actually potentially a story is some scientists say, is this punching holes in the ozone layer? That's the only thing that's maybe a story here, but that was not in the headline. Like, not. It sounded like a story where, like, hey guys, we're in danger. Things are gonna fall on our heads. It's gonna land on your house.
Well, here's
But
here's the question that I have then. If you think about like it almost comes off like the boy who cried wolf here with a lot of these types of stories because there's going to come a point in time where a headline is legit concerning. So think
Yeah.
about like the asteroid one that just came out, like an asteroid. Scientists are worried about
2032?
an asteroid in 2032.
Yeah.
There's like
Yeah.
a 3 point something percent chance that it makes contact with the Earth, right? That's actually pretty scary because if you think about all the and nobody paid attention to that because we've seen 100 other stories that it's like asteroid headed toward Earth, and you read it, it's like 0.000000001% chance it crosses through our atmosphere, and it's like, okay, Jesus, like what are we doing? But now this one comes out where it's 3%, but people aren't paying a lot of attention to it, right? And how big is it? Is it like the size of a bus? Did they talk about how big the size of the asteroid was, what it could do?
I mean, it's going to be nasty. But so that's how I started my Saturday morning. My wife is in bed and she opened social media. That's the first headline that's there, right? NASA says that this is a serious emergency, and I'm like, oh, because I'm not on like Instagram and some of these others. And then the next headline that she like scrolls up to is man seen smiling on camera after blasting girlfriend and child away with shotgun. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I mean, this is how you wake up in the morning? I don't normally look over at our social media feed. But it's just... Anyway.
That took a turn.
Jesus, John. What is going on with you, dude? In that head of yours. How do you go from what I was just talking about to that?
Anyways,
The point there is, though, is just like all of this is manipulation. Right? So at any time, it's just all of it is supposed to have the most shock value or the most twist to evoke a response. Right? And that's what all of these things do. All the bullshit that was just read in all of these is doing that because somebody is trying to fulfill their article quota. And there's a shitty editor that approves it, or maybe not, because they were all gutted after essentially the newspapers lost their ass by not embracing the internet like they should have.
yeah. Well, it's also the business model. If you make people more afraid of their finances, then they're more likely to keep reading your crappy news article to find out what's going to protect them, or buy something from your sponsors, like buy. I'm assuming their sponsors are probably asset gatherers like Charles Schwab or someplace like that. Oh, need an advisor. Like this stuff sounds scary. Better find someone who can protect me. So those places are all a scam. So
you mentioned business model. So it's even more than that, right? So if you take what the average journalist gets paid and the average PR manager, if you will, public relations, it's about 118% difference, right? So fundamentally, it's already flawed. By the person that is telling the news is underpaid by a person that is trying to push news into that system, right? And then like, the articles we just went over were like finance articles. Okay, so who more than likely has some of the most money to pay some of the best PR executives on the planet? Well, it's going to be finance companies, right? So they're essentially paying these PR executives to then push that down to somebody that's paid less. So you have more resources. You have understaffed newsrooms. There's going to be just tons of the bullshit that's going to get in there. So I mean, along those lines, I think the thing, skepticism, which you've mentioned, but it's also the what is it, the cui bono, right? That line from Departed. It's who benefits. That's how people really need to see articles, because if there's somebody that's always going to get something out of it, right? And sometimes it's just the manipulation where they're trying to get the engagement. Sometimes it's wars that are going on in business articles, and that's what I always look at, right? So, for instance, you have like Facebook versus TikTok, you have like Airbus versus Boeing, you have Amazon versus like book publishers, you have Apple versus Android, you have all of these different scenarios that are always going on, all of these different wars where somebody is running some kind of scheme, whether it's the stuff that was going on with Ryan Reynolds and his wife in that movie, or actually it was the opposing side. There's somebody always trying to manipulate it. So it's not a fake news story, it's a manipulation story, and somebody is always going to benefit from back in the day. But this is my rant, so here we go. There's a little bit. I think it goes back to just understanding like American PR. Do you guys know how like the story of like American PR and like Edward Bernays?
No. Hit us up.
Oh,
here's the other educational piece.
Here we go.
All right.
I'm liking this sudden turn.
Should I take notes?
Hopefully our listeners will too.
I doubt it. To increase cigarette sales, they wanted to get more female smokers, essentially big tobacco, right? Okay. So to do that, they hire Edward Bernays, and he comes up with a PR campaign that linked cigarettes, calling them freedom torches, and branding them as symbols for women's liberation. And there was a parade, I believe it was on Easter, that he had all of these women smoking in the Easter parade that went around the news. And there was all these women that felt essentially like this was something that I could identify with for their own liberation. Literally being manipulated and, essentially being poisoned to death was his first move. The other, to show the power.
Hence the start of the MAGA cult.
So,
just women cranking hoons just all over the place.
Little cowboy killers. Another thing too, though, just to show the power of PR, this is a lot of people don't realize, is the history of American breakfast, right? The history of American breakfast, also Edward Bernays. So a company that sold pork, they go to old Eddie Pants and they say, hey, we need to sell more product. And what does old Eddie do? He hires a doctor. And this doctor then writes that he has this doctor write a letter to 5,000 other doctors talking about what is the heart healthy breakfast that everybody should have, just a hearty American breakfast. And then from that, these doctors write back, and he publishes the information. And next thing you know, pork sales are going up. Pork sales went up because of the breakfast that he proposed, which was was bacon and eggs, and that literally created the American breakfast.
Don Draper? Was John Draper's character based off of him?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, Don Draper sounds like he's a culmination of a lot of guys, from the 60s. But in any event, that is the power that we're talking about with the media and the manipulation of it, which is PR, which is the marketing side of it.
I will say, American breakfast is. I would have that 3 times a day. It really is fantastic. So that's one case where I'm actually on the side of the PR people. Anytime I go abroad, it's always like, oh, why is their breakfast so bad here? Anyways.
Well, so my take on like the headlines piece of it is that headlines can be kind of like a virus for a lot of people that read the headlines, like entering your mental system. And if you don't filter this stuff out and know what is right or wrong, or do your own research and not copy and paste it and send it to a buddy, like I do sometimes, then that can literally fuck with you. It can fuck with like everything, like on the business side, like what you're doing, what you tell your customers to do, what your business does. Like a lot of this different directions of how businesses are run are based on, unfortunately, headlines that are out there of people not doing their due diligence. And if they see enough of it, if more people regurgitate that over and over again, it starts to become truth. And then it's like, what are we even doing here? Nobody's checking the facts on this to see if this is true. I mean, yeah.
So I want to build on that. One last thing too is I think this is very relatable for pretty much anybody who, no matter what industry you work in, you've probably seen an article that's dead center in your space, and you knew right away that's wrong. There's no way this is correct. And I realized, because anytime I see an article that's about the recruitment industry or about hiring, half the time I'm like, this is just this is factually incorrect. I just instinctively know that right off the top of my head, but no one else really would. And I do know one reporter for the Wall Street Journal. She's actually called me up just to ask my opinion on the industry and certain things I've seen. I don't think she's ever quoted me, but I'm happy to tell her. And she puts out stuff that's actually good. But I've had other reporters, had someone from Forbes, and it's just like surface level garbage. And I realized that like most reporters, they don't know anything about the industries they report on when they're in business reporting. They're just trying to climb the ladder to get the next step, and very few actually take the time to like learn and truly like kind of understand like what's happening from a business standpoint. So, and I think that the takeaway for me is that like once I had that experience, like talking to a smart reporter and one that really wasn't that smart, and realizing like that's every industry, that's every reporter everywhere, it's made me more critical of every headline I read, because I just assume the person who wrote it probably knows very little about their industry. And the reason why I wanted to do this entire podcast is I just have fun picking this shit apart, because once you could probably look at half the news articles out there in the business world, and if you really take the time, you realize like this is garbage. And I'm glad I learned that it's garbage, because it's a great conversation starter.
There's in their defense, like they don't have enough support and they don't get paid enough. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not the job that it used to be, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I don't think they ever made like a ton of money, but I think they had a lot more glory and maybe power and acclaim than they do now. And I think it's also probably like Pareto's law as well. I mean, there's the ubiquity of people that can just write a story like this. I mean, somebody out of their fucking mind could even say like, "Oh wow, this is even media," right? But in any event, like it's everywhere. So all these people are clamoring and just trying to create the best piece. So unfortunately, there's just so much garbage out there, and you just have a couple of wackos that get attached to a piece. It rises to the top of whatever that is, or whatever algorithm is going to feed it to us. Then the next thing you know, we're judging it, and it's just the nature of the beast.
How much of I do believe that there's really good still media outlets.
Yeah, there are.
Like I worked at Crane's for 4 years, Crane's Chicago Business, and those writers, like some of them are still friends. Like we're really good about doing research and understanding. And I don't feel like Crane's had a lot of clickbaity headlines. At least I don't think so when I was there.
The reason why I like Crane's is because they're also hyper local, which I think is the differentiator.
Well, that's important.
They know what's happening in Chicago. But anyway, continue. Sorry.
No, but I think that the mix of social media today has editorial, like people that write these articles are probably, and I don't know this, but my assumption is they're just like us. They're on Twitter, they're on social media platforms, they're reading things on Reddit, right? And I just feel like a lot of this information that is being gathered is not being sourced well enough today. Where it's a lot of the articles that are written are like James, you talked about the recruiting space. Like I've seen stuff around like just LinkedIn in general that my uncle just sent me an article recently about I think it was in like, I don't want to say USA Today, it was in some well-known publication, and I'm reading it and I was like, this is magazine. Just like fluff. It's just like fluff. It's not even that big. Like if I'm going to read something in like the time, like a well-known art, like publication, I want it to be like more than just surface level. Like I expect you to dig into it and actually give me something of value.
But that's a great point though. Like I think now it's so easy to create something, and we give our attention away so freely that. And there's a feedback loop. So let's say that one of your buddies at Crane's writes a decent article, right? And then it's handed over to some marketer like me that's like, hey, you got to make this, you got to get more views on this. Well, ultimately, my job isn't to appreciate what that person has written or hold it in sanctity. It's essentially like, how can I spice this up and say like, oh yeah, dude punched in face, or whatever it is, to just make it, really, really snappy. And ultimately, all right, that starts working. That starts driving ad sales. Your buddy, it doesn't matter. It's like I'm the one that's going to essentially get the prize for what I'm doing, because that's going to be generating the revenue. And ultimately, that's what's happening. People shouldn't give their attention so freely to stuff like that, and have trusted sources that actually meet their criteria. Down with social media.
Do you know who capitalized? Do you know who did an unbelievable job of capitalizing on all of us in our clickbaity headline reading? The Onion. The Onion does it perfectly. Everything the Onion puts out, like the headlines on the Onion, they know exactly what they're doing, and they're basically just fucking with all of us that buy into this stuff. Like I can't. I'm at my parents' house, so I'm gonna keep this down. I can't. I think it's probably like 4 or 5 times. One of my parents have sent me an article from the Onion, and they're like, "I can't believe this," and I'm like, "Well, you shouldn't because it's the Onion." That's the third time they've gotten you.
Did you ever on Twitter ever see like New York Times pitch bot? It's basically just headlines of things that could be like ridiculous headlines that sound plausibly like something New York Times would cover. It's a good one. God.
Quick story. Staying on the Onion really quick.
All right,
I went to I had an event, an EO event a few weeks ago, and they had one of the original founders of the Onion speak at the event. It was awesome. Like good.
I've seen that guy.
Probably 30. Like he carried the room well. It was awesome. But he talked about the story, and somebody asked him like, "What was your favorite Onion article that you've had?" And he talked about one from like the early 2000s, I think, where he basically was saying it was something about like what's the razor company?
Gillette.
Gillette founder or Gillette CEO says, "Fuck it, we're doing 5 blades." Was the headline? And then literally like 6 months later, Gillette came out with a 5-blade razor. That's awesome.
That's great, man. Yeah, that's good.
All
right, James.
No, I was gonna. The last kind of thought I had, and one of you guys kind of put me on this one, is that they're in the same bubbles that we are. You know, like I can see how these ideas get recycled because like when you guys go on LinkedIn, you'll see people talking about the same things and people riffing on those takes and riffing on those takes, but it's probably the same thing for reporters. Like they're on Twitter, they see some other reporter talking about something, they start going down that rabbit hole, and it just becomes very derivative. I don't know. Maybe that's not interesting of an idea.
No,
anyways,
I mean, but it's true. It's true. People.
Yeah,
people
and, I mean,
and
they get sick of it, man. Like, I mean, just like anything else, they're gonna get washed out, and just like, all right, and then they're probably gonna, have relationships, and then look for a job in PR, and I don't blame them. It's the system rewards the shitty content, like just how it works, and there's nothing that's gonna change like that.
Because we pay attention to the stuff that could be bad.
If
like,
it
think
bleeds,
about it.
it
Like,
leads,
you're not
baby.
100%. That's what we pay attention to. Like,
yeah. All 6 of these articles have us bitching about them, so I guess they win because maybe that was the entire point. Anyways,
yeah.
Let's wrap it, guys. Solid episode. I
Who's
can't
sponsoring
take any more
this
of
one?
John's.
Do we have any sponsors?
Yeah, who's sponsoring, John?
You know what I was thinking about? The Good
train,
News Network.
I was going to say the CTA for the running the train
CTA,
past John's place.
Is it that bad?
What is that? The yellow? What line is that? Is that the orange line over by you?
Man, I don't know, man. When I first moved to the city, I remember I was like, "Hey, should I take the train?" And this guy like looks me up and down. He's like, "Nah, man, don't ever get on that train."
Hey, do we have enough time to kind of tell a quick train story? Quick one.
Yeah. Choo choo.
All right, here we go. All right, then we'll end it with this. All right, so I lived in Bucktown. I took the blue line in every day at the 6 corner stop there at Damon and North. And my wife and I used to watch the investigative reporter guy on NBC. I forget what his name was. I don't think he's there anymore. I haven't seen him in a while. But he was really intense. No, not him. Hansen is who you're talking about, not him.
Yeah.
But he get really intense the way he describes it, and we always laugh like this guy's just next level. So he starts talking about the American transit system, and he's basically going around. He's swabbing different aspects of the American transit system, and he's like, I forget what the metrics they call like if it goes above like 200, it means it's not sanitary and there's germs everywhere. So he's going around doing all the he's got like LA train, like LA bus system. He's going in the New York subway. He's like LA bus system, like we swabbed it, like it was actually fine. It was just under 200, whatever. And then we went to the New York City subway and we swabbed it, and that was way over 200. That was like 400, like all this stuff. So he's talking about like, and then he's like, but nobody held a candle. Nobody was close to the most disgusting of them all. And literally, it pans on the blue line stop that I get on every single day. It was like the Damon stop on the blue line that already smells like piss, so we can smell how dirty it is.
Yeah.
And he swatted. It was like 1,300 something, like off the charts. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I hold on to those rails every day. And then COVID happened, and I haven't taken the blue line since.
Dude, the Jewel down the street from me, the people that'll come off the train station to go in there, I literally saw a guy covered in feces. Comes off the train, like, and then just walks right into there. I was like, oh god.
CTA's me really proud of the sponsorship you guys they did this week. Good conversation for them. Anyways. All right, that's a wrap for episode 11 of the Business is Bullshit podcast. Thanks everyone for coming and tuning in. You can catch us on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. James Hornick, Jared Gibson, John Sirakas signing off, reminding you that business is bullshit.
Sure is.